Other aspects of this story, we've talked about business bailouts, we've talked about individuals bailouts and the packages that are available, we are told. There are not many forthcoming at the moment, but will be available to various people. But what about the charity sector? Chancellor Rishi Sunak is, we are told, to unveil support for charities facing imminent collapse due to the lockdown. Bosses predict £4 billion worth of losses. Let's speak with Saga Sharma, Director of Policy and Communications at Barnardo's. Saga, good afternoon to you.
Hi, Ian. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Nice to have you with us, sir. I mean, you are a huge charity, and I think people have full respect for everything Barnardo's have done, the history of it, the ongoing work, the hard work and diligence of your teams. But like any other charity, I'd imagine right now, you're in a fairly difficult place.
Yeah, I mean, we have shed £8 million a month in the last month, and wow. That is getting worse week by week. We've had to shut all of our charity shops across the UK. Obviously, face-to-face fundraising is a no-no, and we've been, all the large events that we rely on heavily, Great British Public involved in, like the London Marathon, and lots of other events have just had to stop. So that's fairly severe, and even a charity that's 154 years old, like Barnardo's, our very existence is under threat in such a short amount of time. And I think a lot of listeners probably don't know about the charity sector. It's changed quite a lot over the last decade, in that we deliver loads of public services. This big society thing where we do help deliver local authority services. And we aren't a sort of adjunct, an old-fashioned idea of charity anymore.
Sure.
We are absolutely crucial. And so we were worried that the government really, in its busyness to support absolutely everything and business and the economy, has neglected to look at this absolutely essential ally in both the crisis and the aftermath of the crisis, and that is the charity sector.
Saga, would you say that the possible problem that charities like yours are facing is that in these dire times of crisis, people tend to think about themselves rather than wider issues, and one of the first things they stop doing is donating to charities, not because they're nasty people, but that's a kind of natural human process?
I think there's sort of a bit of an information overload, isn't there? And I suspect there's a bit of a freezing reaction in the public at large. I certainly have to take stock, and I've cancelled a couple of direct debits, more the Netflix and Audible type direct debits. But I suspect people are looking very carefully. I think the British public stays generous, and we've seen great community spirit really across the UK. But I think they'll probably be thinking about the most obvious charities out there that feel at the front line of the response. They won't necessarily know that charities like Barnardo's is helping those who are isolated in residential homes. We need to continue supporting families who are really on the brink. There are families with children who are at home, are not in school, who are at risk of, greater risk of exploitation, abuse, domestic abuse, and violence. And all these things are less in the public imagination, I suppose.
Yeah, I was going to say this is, we have an image in our head about charities, but as you touched on, Saga, there at the beginning, I've always thought charities are kind of governments are a kind of three-pronged thing. There's the government, the Westminster people, there are volunteers and individuals, and then there are charities. And, no way around it. You take up the slack where governments aren't able to address certain aspects and issues, and that's what charities do. And what you're talking about here is, with respect to people who want to make sick ferrets better, or whatever charity it might be, you are doing something that is incredibly important here. This is something that has huge implications.
It does. This is a generational crisis. This is something that will, whether we get whatever the projections are for how we get through peaks and extended peaks, etc. The outcome of this is going to make itself felt for many months, possibly years. In terms of recovery. We've got a whole generation of vulnerable children that we support who, in the best of times, were facing extreme vulnerability anyway. And it is just unimaginable what they're going to be going through in the recovery phase for this. So Barnardo needs to survive.
Yeah.
The sector needs to survive. And, the Prime Minister rightly refers to the importance of a whole society approach. And charities have really always been the glue that holds society together because we're built on the trust of community. So really hoping that Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, throws us a much-needed lifeline to some very specific and practical things that he can do that can involve, lots of money. And that, money is clearly an important thing, and that's things like deferral of PAYE and national insurance for 3 months.
Sure. Yeah. So that sort of thing would be handy. And just to go over those figures again, Saga, you said you're kind of down about £8 million a month on what you would be raising. So this is with the... So fair enough, some people have standing orders. There might have been people who cancel a standing order, but that's only part of how you raise money. People rattling tins, events, organisations. Barnardo's put on some pretty big events to raise money. All of that has gone by the wayside, and the cost of that is around about £8 million a month.
That's right. And, we aren't just waiting for government support, although we do need support from the government. We are launching emergency appeal at Barnardo, so I'd ask listeners to really keep an eye out for that on our website, etc. So we're trying to raise our own funds and make it clear why we're important today as much as ever. And we're asking the government to really remind commissioners of services in local authorities to honour their commitments, pay on time. Cash flow, really important right now. Every day counts.
Saga, thank you. Great to have you with us. Saga Sharma, who is the Director of Policy and Communications at Barnardo's. That is a seismic figure, Kev. £8 million a month. I mean, we know Barnardo's is a big, very high-profile charity. They have TV ads, posters. We're all aware of the kind of work they do. But £8 million a month, I mean, it's all relative, of course. It's a huge dent in the coffers.
Yeah, Barnardo's, though, has got the profile and the brand to possibly weather this storm. For God's sake, let's hope they do. But thousands of small charities like All Dogs Matter that we spoke to yesterday.
Yeah, we talked about All Dogs Matter yesterday, didn't we, on the programme? It's small, but to them it's just as important.
For them, I think this crisis could be very existential. So if you give to charities, now has never been a better time than to do it.
Indeed. You're listening to Ian Collins, Kevin O'Sullivan on Talk Radio with...